there's no tomorrow. I wanna race to the...
Can You See How I See would not be possible without the support of our executive producer, Mr. Tom Rau, whose lifestyle and wisdom inspires us all. And how you feeling, George?
Feeling good about it.
All right.
Hopefully we can get people a little more stimulated by talking to other people besides just you and I, just kibitzing.
Well, I think people will be very stimulated still by listening to you. You're right about me, but for you, you're an interesting guy for sure. So in our studio today, we have with us, we have Mr. Tom Rau, is one of our guests, and we have Dr. Gary Dunbar from the head of Neuroscience at Central Michigan University. So these gentlemen are all going to be part of this discussion that we're going to have today. It's part of the process of our episode, our series called Can You See How I See, but those on the front lines. So in this case, we're going to have a discussion about those on the front lines of cognitive health. And Tom, briefly, just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll do the same thing with Dr. Gary Dunbar, and then we're going to jump into this discussion.
My career was basically working in long-term care, rehab centers, and for 40 years. And so I had a lot of contact with aging people, their families, which is also part of it. When you had a 92-year-old woman in the nursing home, you're dealing with their 70-year-old children. So I've had quite a lot of experience with the aging process and how that works.
And now you're how old?
74.
74, and you're on your own aging journey now as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Dr. Gary Dunbar, can we get a little bit about yourself, please?
Yes, I'm the John G. Cahalvi Professor of Neuroscience and the E. Malcolm Field Chair of Neuroscience at Central Michigan University. I've been here for nearly 47 years now. So, and it seems to me now that I know all your ages that I'm the oldest one here. So
how old are you?
I'm 76.
And extremely still relevant, which may come up in our conversation today. So George and I discussed what this episode should be and why this episode was important, and we both came to an agreement that's probably one of the biggest fears of anybody aging, man or woman, as we face degenerative aging issues, is cognitive health. And I know for myself, I lost my dad to Alzheimer's, and George, I'm sure that you've got friends and you've understand the significance of cognitive health and the fear of that.
And physical health as well. You know, about 6 months ago, I came to the realization that I couldn't put a 4x8 sheet of plywood across the table saw all by myself anymore, and that was rather a sad occurrence.
Yeah, aging is not for the faint-of-hearted. It humbles all of us very quickly. So I learned a long time ago. We worked on a series called Those on the Front Lines, or it was called The Embrace of Aging. We did a 13-part series on women and aging, a 7-part series on men and aging, and the biggest takeaway for that for me was how you live your life today determines how you age tomorrow. And so that was kind of so we're going to dive into that subject. So Tom Rau and I, Tom was the executive producer of both of those series, the men's series on aging and women's series on aging. And I said to Tom, I said, let's go to, there's 5 blue zones in the world, and blue zones are areas where men and women live the longest, the healthiest, the least amount of cardiovascular issues, cancers, dementias, diabetes, etc. And they're Loma Linda, California, believe it or not, Costa Rica, Ikaria, Greece, Sardinia, Italy, and the little village of Ogimi in Okinawa. And so in both of those films, we went to both Sardinia and we went to Okinawa. So I invited Tom, not only invited Tom flipped the bill and paid for our production to go to Okinawa, but we went to the little village of Ogimi, and we spent, 10 days with women, because our focus was on the women. They were all in their
late 80s, 90s, 100.
And what was your takeaway from that?
One of the big takeaways was at that time, they told us that the women lived to an average age of 88 to 89. They said the men only lived to 72, 73. And I said, why? And they said, well, the men tend to drink and smoke where the women don't. And so that's one takeaway. But just that it's a very small community. They walk everywhere. They have their own gardens. They've got a lot of social activities. And we went from a party to celebrate birthdays at the community center, and we went with one of the women. We were going to go to her house, and on the way we stopped off at her sister's, who's 106. So we visited there a little bit, and then we went to her house, and it was just this small, quaint community, and everybody knew everybody, and it was just a very simple way of living.
And then really crazy thing about this, George, is that they do this monthly birthday celebration in the community center, and they celebrate everybody's birthday in that month. But it's an opportunity for them to bring all these ladies together, but that's not the real reason to bring them together. They bring the doctors, because that's the only chance the doctors have a chance to see these ladies, because they don't want to do anything with doctors. So they do all their vitals and things like that there. But an amazing thing was, none of these ladies wore glasses.
Absolutely, that was a shock. The only one was the one was 88. She was the youngest one there. She had glasses. The rest of there was 18, 20 of them, and none of them wore glasses. And they have a program, and they were singing, and they had the song sheets in front of them. And I don't know if they knew everything by heart, but they had these song sheets, and they're reading this little print and singing the songs. And I'm looking at it, and at that time I was in my early 60s, and I can't read it.
Right, exactly.
It was in English too. But anyway, so that was kind of a shocking thing.
So it was an inspiring experience for us to glean how these individuals live their life. And of course, it was an important part of our film. So asking Dr. Dunbar, how is it, what is it about aging and cognitive health that maybe we lose sight of or don't realize the significance of it? And it's a slippery slope, right?
Yes, it is. And I think one of the biggest things is just keep moving. And if there's takeaway from your film that I got from that, it was these people are active and they're socially engaged. They are cognitively challenging each other. They are physically exerting themselves. They're walking everywhere. I think all of those things are extremely important for your cognitive health, no matter what age you are.
What happens, and I know you have a model of a brain there, can you hold that up and help us understand, in cognitive decline, what are one of the parts of the brain that are affected the most first? And why and how?
So I'll take this thing apart.
And let me just explain, George, I've got Dr. Dunbar has brought a model of an actual brain, and he's going to actually take apart and explain visually what the brain, how the brain works.
I didn't volunteer for that.
So a lot of times our frontal lobes are really important for short-term memories or working memory, recall. The visual areas in the back of the brain called the occipital lobe. The parietal lobe, I think George uses a lot because this is where your touch and spatial recognition is mediated. But it's the temporal lobe on the side that really hits with aging. In fact, we call it temporal because the graying of our hair starts in the temporal parts of our head. But so this part really is ravaged in some cases by Alzheimer's disease. Now I'm going to switch this over to the other side. And I'm going to take it apart because we'll show you underneath the connections. And in fact, we're doing research connecting this part of the brain, medial septum, through the fornix to an area in the brain here that I'll pull apart and see if I can show you. It's the hippocampus. And I think...
Oh, is that where it says the H?
Yes, that's
the hippocampus.
Yes, and it's buried in the temporal lobe.
So George, what he has is this model that he's pulled these pieces apart, almost like a puzzle, colorful puzzle. So there's vibrant colors, and each color represents a different part of the brain. And I didn't realize the hippocampus was there. I thought it was a different spot. Help the audience understand kind of briefly what happens with Alzheimer's or any forms of dementia. What is it that actually takes place?
Well, if I could tell you exactly what that was, Keith, I'd probably have a Nobel Prize. But we know there's a lot of things that happen. We know there's some genetic components to Alzheimer's disease, but there's also things that we can do, and you've talked about it. And Tom's film with you showed it in many cases, in the physical exercise and cognitively challenging yourself, the social interaction, the diet is extremely important, and so I think all of these things can help slow down progression of any type of dementia, including Alzheimer's disease. But it's no cure. I mean, there's a lot of interacting elements here, and one of them obviously is genetics.
And we'll be right back.
People were interested for what I do here at Ginkgo Gallery. Lots of people come and take a couple different classes. When people leave after the 2-day class, they generally have one or two things in their hand that they can, take home with them. My skills and talents in the woodworking business are quite varied. We can accommodate most things that people want to learn how to do. To obtain any of the stuff that we have for sale here in our gallery, you can reach us through our Facebook page, Ginkgo Gallery Greenville, or you can stop by our gallery here in Greenville, Tennessee.
Let's get back to our discussion. You can get a blood test now to understand your trajectory of any dementia-related illnesses. Would you do it? Do you recommend it? Do you scared of it? Tom, George, if you could learn now where you're going cognitively, would you take the test?
I would just for the knowledge. I mean, if you knew that or the trajectory was that would definitely influence how you live this part of your life.
I would probably not.
Why?
Because on both sides of my family, no one has, all the old people, nobody had Alzheimer's or dementia. They were all very clear. My grandmother's 92, my father was 86, and so my mom died young of cancer, but other relatives, no one's ever had dementia. And my life is the way I'm living it now. I'm just going to continue living it the way I am now. And
Yeah, by the way,
I'm going to let the chips fall where they may, and I think I've aged pretty well, cognitively and physically, and I just think I'm just going to continue with what I'm doing and let the chips fall where they may.
and by the way, I forgot to mention, we lovingly refer to Tom as Teton Tom because he has a home in Jackson Hole, and if you go visit Tom, he will give you tours of the Teton Mountains in an exhausting, long 9, 10, 12, 14-hour hike throughout the mountains and keep saying, come on, we got another hour to go.
And skiing.
And skiing. Dr. Dunbar, would you take the test or have you done the test? And what do you think about that?
Well, it's a very good question. I really appreciated George and Tom's response because I think most people see both sides of that. I tend to be more in line with George. I'd like to know, and maybe it's because I'm not as active as Tom is, but if I knew, maybe I'd become more active. I don't know. It's really quite a strange thing. But what I'm interested in, Keith, would you take the test?
Yeah, and I've wrestled with this. And I think the answer, I think I do want to do the test. But I'll tell you why I want to do the test. I think that we all know that there's more time behind us than there's in front of us. And we also know that that time that's in front of us is so critically important to these final years. So being healthy, I mean, I'm kind of a fanatic about trying to stay healthy as long as I can for a variety of reasons. Obviously, it's all family-based. So I think the reason I think I'd want to take the test is for me, not being an extremely wealthy guy and things of that nature, I'd want to know how to plan for my family because I think that having been a custodial guardian of my dad with Alzheimer's, even though I was adopted, it taught me some severe, I had a front row seat to Alzheimer's. And then we did the 3-hour film about Alzheimer's and dementia. I understand the complexities and how complicated, how hard it is for loved ones to take care for individuals with any form of dementia or Alzheimer's. So I think that it would maybe give me a little planning edge while I cognitively can plan for the ones I care about and love about a great deal in my life so that I know that they're, they're taking care of me. They'll be. I can say to them, listen, just put me in a closet, put me in a closet, and let me listen to some music, and I'll be fine. Just so that I can help them in the process in some way. I guess that'd be the reason. But I think there, Gary, Dr. Dunbar, and we've talked about this. There's so many things thrown at us now in society and social media and things like that that are either fads or factual or new information. I mean, one here, George, reach your right hand out and take this and reach your here. I'm going to put it in your hand. Smell that and tell me what it is.
Oh, it's an herb.
I don't need to smell it.
It's an herb, and it's
That's in my backyard in Wyoming.
rosemary.
It's
That's what I
rosemary,
say.
exactly.
Yeah, rosemary.
So I'm going to throw this to Dr. Gary, but there's been all these new research about supposedly that if you smell and sniff rosemary, it's supposed to have some cognitive benefits. So is that true or false, Doc?
Well, I as you know, I researched a little bit into this, and the claims that you saw on Instagram that it reduces cognitive or increases cognitive abilities by 75% was erroneous. It was actually 7.5% in an unpublished study from the psychology department from Northumbria College. And I'm a little bit skeptical about how much that could enhance, but we do know that there are a lot of spices that work very well in the brain, in different forms that can actually work as powerful antioxidants. Rosemary is one, and turmeric. The curcumin in turmeric is a powerful antioxidant, and this can also help. So I don't throw this out as a potential. I think the study that suggested that it's just a kind of a panacea for cognitive deficits is probably not. It's probably overstating.
All right, let's throw another one. George, you know what creatine is?
Yeah.
Tom, you know what creatine? Oh wait, I'm sorry. Go ahead, George.
So I have a question for you. Excluding people who have dementia and that, as we age, how much of the aging process is it in our brain that, for lack of not knowing the correct term, causes us to have less elasticity in our brain, our ability to absorb things faster or retrieve them at a different rate?
Well, explain elasticity. That's a great thought.
Well, I say that because as we age, our muscles, and what we're able to do physically has a lot to do with how limber we are, the elasticity of our muscles, how fast they recover, and those kinds of things. So in our brain, how much of when someone says that they're suffering, they may think they're suffering from Alzheimer's, that it's possibly just that our brain, is it true? I'm asking you, is it true that our brain starts to slow down and the process starts to change?
Yes, there's certainly evidence that we do lose cells in our brain. I mean, Tom mentioned one of his take homes from the Blue Zone was that the men were smoking and drinking, and if you drink a lot and smoking, we know that this can have toxic effects, and including into the brain. Now, moderate amount of drinking may be actually helpful, but too much can be harmful. And there's many toxins that we're not even aware of that we may be breathing sometimes that could have detrimental effects on our brain. So yes, we lose brain cells. There's some compensatory, and when you talk about neuroplasticity, George, there is a lot of compensatory changes that occur in the brain. We may have fewer brain cells, for instance, but those brain cells have more arbors, they have more dendritic spines, so the connections can be more refined. And so there's some compensatory activity that goes on there. But in Alzheimer's and in some other neurodegenerative diseases, you have some other problems that occur. And one of them is mitochondrial problems, and that's where creatine might.
And we'll be right back. Who doesn't love pickled veggies? Now, thanks to the Great Lake Pickling Company, you can so easily create a wide variety of pickled vegetables in a week in your fridge with this very cool pickling pouch. Just drop in almost any type of vegetables, and in a week, you have some really great homemade, delicious, crunchy pickled vegetables. Just go to greatlakepickling.com. Back to our discussion. Yeah, so to talk about creatine and the newest studies about creatine and the impact creatine can have, we all know creatine, bodybuilders have used it, and so on and so on. In the last year and a half, I put a dose of about a half a teaspoon of creatine in my protein drink every morning religiously because of the new studies, not only cognitively but physically, what it can do for your muscle strength and health and revivalness. But what are your thoughts on creatine in the brain? Because you had a good point about that.
Well, as you know, creatine actually sort of works when it becomes phosphocreatine. And so what we need in our muscles and in our brain oftentimes, and this is where the mitochondria comes in, is we need to produce energy. And the energy of the brain is produced in the mitochondria. They take glucose and make it into what we call adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. So what creatine does, phosphocreatine, and you can get it through the diet like you were doing, or you can get it through meat that's in the diet. And what it does is it actually brings in a phosphorus that can add on to what we call adenosine diphosphate, ADP, and make it ATP. So what creatine does, it gives you that extra energy, and it preserves the glycogen, which is stored sugar in your muscles, for instance. And so you can do exercises, more strenuous exercise. Tom could take another hour of his hike.
Please God, no.
but so creatine does have that ATP boosting. We did some research on that. I'll tell you about it if you're interested.
Yeah, so if individuals are interested, because we are going to run out of time, if individuals are interested to understand if creatine is right for them, they should talk to their doctor, right? They should do their own research on it and so on. But it makes sense to at least have a conversation with somebody, correct?
Absolutely. I think in any supplement, I mean, particularly if you're taking a bunch of them, your doctor should know about it, because there can be some harmful interactions between a few good things.
I have a question for Tom about aging.
Yes.
Is it related to you in running the facilities that you ran? Did you find that people who came into your facilities who had been isolated in their own home and then moved into one of your facilities where they had access to a lot of other people that were in their same age group, and now all of a sudden we're put in a facility where there was more stimulus around? Did you see that people improved when they came into your facilities?
Absolutely. I can tell you many, many stories of people coming in. I don't want to be here. This is the old home folk. I don't want this. And they were isolated in their houses, and they didn't eat well, and they didn't socialize. And when they came in, within a week or 2 weeks, boy, this place isn't so bad. The food isn't good, but I really enjoy all these people and all the interactions. And yes, I don't have any statistical numbers, but I'd say the vast majority who were cognitive and really didn't want to be there, but were there because of physical restraints, they enjoyed it and thought it was fine. And I think it also relates to how much visitation you have from your family and that type of thing. But the majority, yes, once they got in, it wasn't what they thought it was going to be.
Yeah, that visitation with family is critically important.
It is. And that's why I always recommended people to, if grandma's in Florida and you're here, bring her up here and put her in a facility close to you so you could visit.
So as it related to your facilities and what we're talking about here about diet and everything, did you work with dietitians?
Oh yeah, that's a requirement. Everybody is on a specific diet, and they have to. Yes.
In relation to food and eating, and this is
You want to talk to me?
oh man, Tom, the dude can eat.
And everything.
Yeah, so this is going to be an interesting conversation with Dr. Gary. We'll close with this, but I want to have this conversation because I had it with Dr. Gary Dunbar at another setting, and I found it fascinating. What we put in our stomach, in our gut, actually impacts the brain, and the biomotor. Actually, so that I don't butcher this, I'm gonna let Dr. Dunbar jump in and talk about the importance in all the new studies in relation to gut and brain.
Yeah, well, I think the microbiota that is a balance between harmful and beneficial bacteria to a large degree, and you have the right probiotics, and it can have a beneficial effect on your brain, because we know the vagus nerve, which connects the intestines and the gut with the brain, is a vital connection. And for instance, the gut produces 70% of the serotonin that we have, and we don't realize it because we think of that as a brain transmitter. But the enteric nervous system, part of the gut system, actually is very important. And I would maintain that, as some have said, that the gut is, they call it the second brain, but in some ways it may have been the first brain. If you take unicellular animals, what do they need? They need nutrition. And how did the brain evolve? Well, it was the anterior part of the gut. We look at insects, they have the supraesophageal ganglion, which is their brain, which is right in front of the gut and brings in the food. So they navigate to where they need the food. So I think to a large degree, that brain gut connection has always been an evolutionarily strong component, and it does affect our behaviors, and it does affect our health.
So the people saying that they're hangry because they're hungry and they're getting angry, that's a real thing then, huh?
Well, I would guess yes. You know,
Chemical imbalance.
you know, as we know, the best medicine is good food, and I think if we have good diets and we exercise and whatnot, a lot of the problems that we encounter may be prevented. But as you know, the typical Western and American diet can be pretty out of whack with what we're evolved to consume. So,
Tom, are you right-handed or left-handed?
Right-handed.
Catch it through your left hand. Okay. George, you right-handed or left-handed?
Right.
Right-handed. Do you ever do things with your left hand?
Oh yeah.
So, and I know we're going to close this, but this just made me think of something. What's a takeaway, Dr. Dunbar, that we all can do? That I think there's been all these new studies that if you do things with if you're primarily right hand, and you start doing things with your left hand, something as simple as brushing your teeth, brushing your hair, things like that, can that create neural pathways of health for the brain, like learning an instrument?
that's a good question. I know I'm not a big proponent of the dichotomy that right brain is creative and left brain is analytical, because there is a connection between the two. But absolutely, if you start using your left hand more, you're going to develop neural pathways that will allow it to be more dexterous. And I mean, think of Mickey Mantle. His father said, "Okay, I want you to be a switch hitter in baseball," and started him out so he could hit both ways. And I think those pathways served him well in his baseball career. But yes, absolutely. Anytime you challenge yourself cognitively or physically, like using your left hand more, you are going to develop new synaptic connections and new pathways that are part of what George was talking about in terms of neuroplasticity. It just happens.
Tom, would you like to offer any closing thoughts?
Other than I'm very contrarian in a lot of all the stuff. My diet is not very good. I drink pop, I drink energy drinks, I eat red meat. I eat more sugar than probably 10 people eat. I have a dessert every night. So
but you're extremely active.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. My shtick is activity. I mean, I work out, whether it's biking, in the gym, skiing, or whatever, a minimum of 2 hours a day. I have a trainer 2 days a week. And I'm addicted to that. I'm not addicted to alcohol, and I'm not addicted to anything. I am addicted to exercise. And that's what I tell you I do. But I do fun stuff. Like you said, when you come out to Wyoming, I'll take you on a snowshoe trip, or I'll take you whitewater rafting, or that type of thing. I'm into those kind of adventure type things. But
So your lifestyle is very forgiving in the sense of because the calorie you burn and the movement you do, and you have both knees replaced too.
both knees and a bad shoulder. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can still climb. Actually, I'm going to Ireland to climb the highest mountain and some other peaks in Ireland in the end of August
Of course you are.
with 2 new knees. Yeah.
Any closing thoughts on this, George?
I could spend a huge amount of time talking about as it relates to different things in our brain and how it affects us differently in that, and as it's really weird. And because you happen to be in Mount Pleasant, I can tell you a great little anecdotal story about walking in Mount Pleasant one day. Hadn't been there for probably 10 or 15 years, and I'm walking towards the campus, walking down one of the sidewalks there, and somehow inside my brain a little alarm went off inside my brain that goes ding, 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 fire hydrant. And I was probably within 10 feet of that fire hydrant as I was walking along. And I can tell you that when I walked by and found that fire hydrant for the very first time, I didn't run into it and get hurt or anything. It just noted it as I walked by with my cane. How on earth is your brain capable of, 10 years later being back in the same spot and pulling some little bit out of the back of your brain that, how does your brain do that? I mean, it's just that those kinds of things just intrigue me to no end.
And Dr. Dunbar, you have to answer that because that's a great question, and he's surely not asking me that question because I don't know the answer. How does your brain do that? Then it's a good point because I've traveled all around the world, and you go back to like Paris, and I haven't been in there 20 years, but I can remember this exact cafe, the exact street. How does the brain do that?
Well, obviously, we do have some engrams, if you will, or storage circuits in the brain that we activate, usually through similar stimuli. But yeah, that's the $64,000 question. How does a brain, relive all of these episodes that we've had in our life? But certainly there are circuits, and smell, for instance. And I'm not saying that George was using smell or echolocation, but
I do both of those all the time.
yes,
He
and
does have
even
echolocation.
unconsciously- Yeah, even unconsciously, there may have been some markings from dogs that there must be a fire hydrant by. Who knows?
Could be.
But in the back of his brain, he stored that memory because for some reason it was I think emotionally important. How did I know that there was a fire hydrant there? So that was something almost like a flashbulb memory. We all remember 9/11, where we were and what happened, or for most of us at this table here, we all remember the assassination of John F. Kennedy and where we were at the time. These are flashbulb memories. Our emotions have been, and so they will activate these circuits where our memories are. So I think that's my best explanation. Is short. It'd be a whole new podcast to cover it in detail.
Yeah, but that was very, very well said. Thank you.
And I would like to add. I would like to add that George does have echolocation. I've been with him on several occasions, and he's amazing.
His ability to navigate.
His ability is beyond understanding.
Yeah, it is very true. Very true. So Tom and Dr. Dunbar, thank you so much for spending this time with us. George and I have thoroughly enjoyed this. This is part of that those on the front lines of, in this case, it was cognitive health. Never forget, how you live your life today will determine how you age tomorrow.